So hello everyone and welcome back to the channel on our continuing voyage to become better blues players. My name's Mark and in this lesson we're going to have a look at the playing style of Mr. B.B. King and more specifically the tune The Thrill Is Gone. So the way the lesson's going to work, you're going to see me play an example solo in this style and then we'll come back on the other side. I'll talk you through the essential techniques and ideas that you need to build some of B.B. King's playing into your own style. Then what I'll do is I'll take my example and I'll break it down note by note, lick by lick. And then finally at the end of the video I'll also have a little chat about the kind of tones that I'm using, the gear that I'm using in order to get the sound that I'm getting on this example. So best place to start, here's the example. So that was the example there. And first thing to say is the song is in the key of B minor. Now I've already done an entire lesson on the rhythm part and the chords. So if you're interested in knowing that, go check out that other lesson. I'll put a link in the description. Also, I've already done an analysis of B.B. King's intro solo and main solo as well. And also, just for the Patreon supporters, there's a video that's going to be coming out very soon just for them that takes the outro solo and analyzes that as well. So this lesson kind of brings all of that together and says, okay, how do we build that into our own playing and how did I come up with that example that you've just seen? So some of the essential techniques that we need to get into our playing to sound like B.B. King. Well, the first thing I want to talk about is the note choice. We're in the key of B minor. B.B. King almost exclusively sticks to B minor pentatonic, and actually in researching this I've analysed the notes that he's playing, and what I'll do is I'll put a graphic on screen now which is a heat map of the fretboard. So if you can imagine the fretboard of the guitar, and we can see whereabouts he's playing. So the colours, the frets, the notes that are in red or more red are the ones he's playing more often. So we can see from that he's playing this B on the 12th fret of the B string. He's playing that note an awful lot. He's also playing this one here, which is the 10th fret of top E string, and this one here, 12th fret of the top E string. So those notes, this one here on the B string, that's the root. That's the note of B, and we're playing in the key of B. So that's why he plays that note so much. This note here, 10th fret top E string, that is the minor third or the flat third. And this one is the 4th, 12th fret top E string. Now, what I don't show on that is how he's playing those notes and what he's actually doing with them, the amount of time he's spending on each of those. All I've done is analyse the amount of time he hits them. Now, if you look at the notes that he's playing in general, I've produced another graphic which shows you just which notes he plays, and this is taken from the intro solo and the main solo, and you can see that if you look at all the notes he plays, he's basically playing root note, minor third, and the 4th. The other notes he's hardly playing at all. He plays the major third once in the intro solo. It's the only time he plays that in the entire song. That's just as a little short chromatic run as part of a run going up here. So he just does it as a passing note. In the main solo, he plays the 2nd once or twice. But if you look at the amount of notes in the entire song, he only steps out of minor pentatonic in those 2 occasions, and most of the time he's playing root, minor third, and the 4th. And as I say, those graphics I wouldn't normally produce those when analysing someone's style. I wouldn't normally do it in that kind of real kind of data-driven way. But for this, it was so obvious when I started learning the song that he's spending so much time just on this note here, this note here. Now, let's talk about what he's doing when he's on those notes. So that B, 12th fret, the B string, he spends a lot of time on there, so that's where he's going to rest. And when he's resting, he's shaking it. Okay, so that's what I've tried to build into my example solo, spending a lot of time on that note, resting. Resting on the note, but shaking it while we're there. When he plays this minor third, the flat third, 10th fret of the top E string, he almost always gives it some amount of bend, what I tend to refer to as a dirty bend. Just bending it slightly sharp, not bending it all the way up to the major third, not up to the next note, just kind of pulling it so it's essentially out of tune. And what that does is that creates tension, and then he'll resolve that tension by resting back on the root note. So you get this kind of thing going on. Okay, that kind of thing. So he's pulling that note, not doing, I think once in the whole song he does a full tone bend, but other than that he's just kind of pulling it dirty. And the other thing to say about this note here, 12th fret, top E string, he's bending that one a lot, but he's usually bending it the full tone and doing that kind of thing. He sometimes just pulls it a half tone. Usually it's a full tone. He doesn't spend a lot of time on that. He's kind of hitting that and then coming back to rest on the root note or the flat third, but usually the root note. So if we look at his note choice, if you want to improvise over this track, best thing to do is just focus around those particular notes. We're not playing like long scale runs or anything here. He's playing short phrases, focusing on just those notes. Okay, so techniques that you'd have seen in my example that you'll hear in the original song as well. Obviously you've got bending, which we've just talked about. The other techniques he uses, the vibrato, as I mentioned, vibrato on the root note. He never bends the root note, just vibratos it. He doesn't do much vibrato on the other notes. He tends to bend those. So you got you got vibrato, you got bending. He uses a rake occasionally as well. Now a rake is where you push through some muted strings to get to a string that's not muted. So an example would be this. So every time you get that sound, that's a rake. And what I'm doing is I'm literally resting palm of my hand, the side of the palm rather, on the strings that I'm not playing, and I'm pushing through that. Okay, and then what I'm doing is I'm stopping that as soon as I get to the top E string. And what I'm doing is as I come off, as I hit the top E string, I'm bending the note, and you'll notice I've got my thumb wrapped over here, so that by the time I bend the note, the other strings are now dampened, not by the palm on my right hand, but actually by the other fingers on my left hand. I'm not muting that at all with my right hand. All the muting now has come from the left. It's a tricky technique, but it's one that's good to get down. A lot of players use it. B.B. King uses it a lot. And you can rake slowly, or you can rake quickly. Okay, so you do those kind of things. I hope I've explained that. It's a tricky one, but once you get it down, it's fine. So he uses that one quite a lot as well. But the thing that struck me most when learning The Thriller's Gone, the thing that I want to really kind of take into my playing here, is his use of dynamics. And by that I mean how loud his loudest note is and how quiet his softest note is. And if you listen to the original recording, you'll see this. If you see my other videos where I've actually where I teach his actual solos, you'll have heard me say things like, this is the note that I think he's playing, but it's so quiet on the record you can barely hear it and you're not quite sure if it's really there. his softest pick is so soft that you can only just about hear if you've got headphones in, you've got the thing turned up. So his softest note is barely audible, and his hardest note, he's hitting it pretty much as hard as he can. And the way he's got his equipment set up, you get that real difference in volume. He's not using like a volume pedal or doing any kind of clever studio tricks. This is all just in his picking. If you see any videos of him on YouTube playing live, you'll see this is just part of his normal live performance. So really trying to get that in, and I've really tried to emphasize that in my example solo. Okay, so we talked about B.B. King's note choice and particular techniques. Let's talk about the actual licks in my example solo. Okay, so the way I've done this, I'm going to break it down into a series of 7 licks, the whole solo. This is the way I always kind of analyze a solo, break it down into licks. This is the way I think B.B. King would think, short phrases with gaps between them. So that's what we've done here. Okay, so lick 1 goes like this. Okay, and very simply, 7th fret of the B string, followed by 7th fret of the top E, followed by 12th fret of the B string, hold it and shake it. And the important thing with this one is it comes in on the preceding bar. So it's not actually coming on the very start of solo, it actually comes in a little earlier. So the timing's like 1, 2, 3. And if you count in your head, the first note is the 4, the second note is the and then land this on the 1. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. And the important thing is to land this note, the root note, on the 1. I'm always getting asked about questions about timing and how to place the licks. That kind of addresses that. Okay, the second lick then goes like this. Okay, so actual notes, we start in 12th fret of the B string, 10 of the top E, 12 of the top E, and then bend it. So far we've got this. Back to 12 on the top E, off to 10, back to 12 on the top E. So far we've got this. I'll do this really nice and slow. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so those last 2 notes are quite quick. Here it is again, nice and slow. Okay, and then the second half goes like this. But I'm getting that dynamics in. So I'm trying to play this as play the first note at a normal level, and then the last 4 notes of that little piece I'm playing really quiet. So it goes like this. I'll try and capture that, but slow. Okay, so I hope you can hear the difference in volume there. So yeah, the first part of the lick is nice and loud. The second part is nice and quiet. Listen to the way I did it on the original improvisation, that the performance, the example, and you'll see the difference there. And I was really just, as I was improvising, just trying to think, okay, get that difference between loud notes and soft notes. Okay, so that was lick 2. Lick 3 now goes like this. 1, 2, 3. Nice and slow. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I'll put tab on the screen for all of these. Oh, and by the way, if you want a copy of the tab, send me an email. Details are in the description below, and I'll send you the PDF of the tab. Okay, so what we've got here is we're starting 12 on the B string to 10 on the top E. Okay, and that comes in on the 4 immediately before bar, what's this, bar 6 I think it is. So we've got, then on the start of bar 6, we've got hit the top E string twice. 1, 2, 3. Okay, then we're coming off 10 to 12 on the 10 on the top E string, 12 on the B string. Okay, back to 10 on the top E to 12 on the B string, rest it and hold it. Okay, so the whole lick again, nice and slow. 1, 2, 3. Lick 4 now goes like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, check out the original performance for exactly the phrasing on this one and the dynamics as well, because this is one where the first half is quite loud and the second half is quite quiet. But the actual notes, taken 12 on the top E string, bend it up a whole tone, back down to 12, off to 10, and then back to 12. Cross your fingers as you come to 12 on the B string as well. Went through that very quickly. You can have a look at the tab, but it basically goes like this. Okay, so nice and slow again, bend up, 12, 10, 12, and then 12 on the other string. Okay, and then the second part is 2 hits on 10 on the top E string, bending it slightly sharp, playing it quite quiet, 12 on the B string, 10 again on a top E string, nice and quiet, bend it slightly before coming off again to 12 on the B string. So that second part goes like this. Okay, put the whole lick together, you get this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Lick 5 then goes like this. Okay, and I'll do it nice and slow. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so what we're doing is we're jumping right up and hitting 19 on a top E string. Should have mentioned this when we talked earlier about B.B. King's note choice. This is one thing that he does that's really kind of signature B.B. King move. Wherever he's playing, he'll just randomly jump right up and grab the root note at the highest point on the fretboard, so kind of jumping an octave up, and just hits it twice. Okay, so he does that. You'll hear that in the main solo and in the outro solo. He does that on the original record. So I've tried to build that into my example. So the important thing is, and I talked about this when I analysed the main solo, is this is coming in on beat, I think this is the and of beat 3. So it's like 1, 2, 3, bap, bap. Okay, so anyway, that's where that is. And then what I'm doing is 12 twice on the top E string, off to 10, and then 12 on the B string. So that bit goes like this. Okay, then back to 10 on the top E string to 12. Okay, so far we've got this. Okay, nice and easy little lick. And then the second half, what I'm doing is I'm bending it up and then I'm picking it a couple of times once I've bent it. Okay, so bend, pick another 2 times and shake the second one. Okay, so that was lick 5. Lick 6 now has this rake in it, and it starts with this. Okay, so you want to get that in. We talked about raking before. So the whole lick goes like this. Okay, so as I said, start with the rake, then 12, 10, 12, 10 again, all that on the top E string. And then you're pushing that one sharp, okay, and then you do it going now, bringing the volume down, playing softly. You're going to do bend 10 again and coming off to 12 on the B string. Okay, so whole of lick 6, nice and slow. Okay, hard to teach that variance in dynamics without the accompaniment of the backing track, because what I notice I do is as I play soft, I actually slow down, but I don't do that when I'm playing with the backing track, obviously. But anyway, so apologies for that. Then we're up to lick 7. Lick 7's the final lick and the easiest one, and it just goes like this. Okay, so this is what I wanted to do, is wanted to get in this idea that B.B. King, although he does play around up what we would call box position 2 of minor pentatonic a lot, which is where your root note is ring finger on the B string, he then will slip down occasionally and play a little bit of box position 1 as well. So that's what's going on here. So if you think of your regular B minor pentatonic scale, that's kind of where you'd normally learn it. And he's just playing a little lick, or rather I'm just playing a little lick to him to kind of impersonate him, which will go like this. So 7 on the G string twice, 9 on the G string, cross your fingers as you come to 9 on the D string, nice and slow. And just hold that and give it a shake. Okay, so that's my example solo, trying to sound like him, trying to get as many of those B.B. King isms into the playing as I can. As I say, part of a longer series. What I'd like to do now is tell you a little bit about how I'm getting the tone that I'm getting. So this is a Gibson 335. It's actually a 2004 model that I've recently picked up second hand, but it's got a very nice finish on it. It looks beautiful. Anyway, so that, but it is just, it's a Gibson 335. So that's not quite the guitar he used. He used a different ES model with I forgot what it's called, but a fancy tone control on it that gave him different options. But I think you can get close enough with just a regular 335, or the Epiphone 335. I'm sure would be just as good. Amp wise, I'm using my Blackstar HT5. I'm using it slightly different than I normally do. I'm actually going straight into the clean channel here. Quite a lot of reverb, because I think B.B. King uses a lot of reverb. But the amp is set perfectly clean. B.B. King uses very clean tone, but just kind of like a hint of grit in there. And so with that hint of grit, I'm using a Boss Blues Driver, the BD2. I'll put a graphic up on screen. I'll take a photo of how I've got the pedals set up and put that on. But basically I've got just a hint of dirt going in there, so that when I play soft, it's nice and clean. But if I dig in, you get a bit of dirt. Okay, so that's what's going on there. So it's set so that when I dig in, you get a bit more grit, but you get the volume jump as well. When I soften back, you lose the grit and it gets quite quiet. But that's how I've got it set up when I've been teaching the lesson. When I do the performances, both on the other lessons, when I'm actually showing the solos, and on this example solo as well, what I've done is over the backing track, I've got a really cheap analog delay pedal switched on. I'll switch that on now, so you can hear what that sounds like. You can tell it's a really cheap analog delay pedal for the giant clonk sound that you get when you switch it on. But that's what I use, and that it's set, again, I'll put a graphic on screen of this, set so you just get a little bit of delay in there. Doesn't sound like a delay effect, just sounds like kind of a bigger reverb, or just a hint of echo. Okay, so you can hear just a little hint of delay. And I'll switch it off and do the same. So still quite a lot of reverb coming from the amp, but I like that delay sound when I'm doing a performance. When I'm teaching, I always switch the delay pedal off because it kind of gets a little bit too messy otherwise. So that's my tone, that's how everything's set up. If you found this series on The Thrill Is Gone useful and helpful, then you can show your support. I have a Patreon supporters team, members who basically fund the channel. I also have a PayPal tip jar. Details of both those things are in the description below. Want to say a big thank you to Butternote Blues, who provided the backing track for this one. I've mentioned them several times, and please go check out their site, show them you know, a little bit of love, and subscribe to what they do as well. They've got backing tracks coming out and they're really good. Okay, so that then kind of rounds off this whole Thrill Is Gone series. I'll put all the videos in a playlist so you can find them on my channel, and then we'll be back with something a little different next time. So I'll see you again.